No one should have to go through a divorce feeling alone and isolated. The Divorced Girl Smiling podcast is a production of Divorced Girl Smiling, where every show is 30 minutes aimed to empower you, help you feel validated and understood, and connect you with some of the best divorce professionals in the industry. So grab a cup of coffee or a glass of wine and start smiling as you join us right now for the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found and always at divorcedgirlsmiling.com. Before we get started, I want to tell you about two Divorced Girl Smiling trusted professionals who I think you're going to want to know about. The first one is divorce coach Marty Winder Adams. Marty is a certified divorce transition coach and a certified divorce specialist. She's been a coach for over a decade, and she's also been a mediator for over 25 years. Marty knows how often women's voices are not heard in mediation, negotiation, and discussions throughout the divorce process. I love Marty. I trust her so much. She helps women who are in the process of separation or divorce, who are interested in making the best decisions on behalf of themselves and their children, who are focused on minimizing the financial impact of divorce, and who want to have confidence that they're in control of the process. If you want to learn more about Marty, you can find her at divorcecoach4women.com, and that's the number 4. I also want to tell you about a wonderful law firm in South Florida. They serve Broward and Palm Beach counties, and the name of the firm is Klein Law Group. The lawyers at Klein Law Group are committed to delivering strong and seasoned legal advice to those facing divorce. The firm's been in existence for over 20 years, and the group is dedicated to individualized support and making sure their clients get the best legal result possible. Now, I have met two of the attorneys, Joseph Soffer and Amelia Warshall, and I think the world of both of them. They are really wonderful, really smart. I interviewed them for Divorceapalooza and really thought they were extremely capable, experienced, great listeners, and just good attorneys. If you want to learn more about Klein Law Group, you can find them at kleinattorneys.com. You can also find both Klein Law Group and Marty Winder Adams in the Trusted Professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. So let's say you're in a grocery store. You're looking for your favorite brand of mustard, only to find that they no longer carry it. And the brand that's available is twice the price, and you don't even like the packaging, and you're really not happy. Then imagine this. You think that you are going to have your normal work shift, and you've just been informed that you're moving to a different shift, which throws a wrench in your Pilates schedule. And the third thing I want you to imagine is your spouse has just told you that he's leaving you for your neighbor down the street that you've been casually saying hi to on your evening walks. So, I'm talking about change. Everything from mustard to getting divorced. Nobody likes change. It's uncomfortable. It's scary. It takes us out of our comfort zone. It makes us have to work our minds and think of the alternative, and we just don't like it. That's what we're going to talk about today, how hard change is when it comes to divorce and tips for handling it. My guest is Liesl Darby. Liesl is a mediator and a divorce coach, and she is part of Intentional Divorce Solutions. And I just want to tell everybody listening that Liesl actually wrote the part about the mustard and the shifting and the divorce. So this wasn't me. It was her article that she wrote for Divorced Girl Smiling. Hi, Liesl.
Hello, Jackie. I'm so happy to be here.
So nice to have you on here. I love the article you wrote. Do you agree with me that people just don't like change? We just are not designed to be like, oh, great, they don't sell my mustard anymore, so I'm going to just go with the new one. Like, we don't like that.
People hate change. I mean, that's just the way it is. And when change comes our way, our normal reaction is to do whatever is possible to get it back to the way we liked it. Even when we know that it's probably something for the best, it's still
Right.
our inclination is, I don't like this, but that's the normal reaction is, I don't like this, I don't trust it. How do I get back to how do I get back to where it was? And it causes us a lot of problems when we do
So
that.
we're not really going to talk about mustard changes, that kind of stuff. We're talking about the pressure of the change that comes with divorce. And some of those things are you might have to move, you might have to go back to work, your kids might have to switch schools, you might have to deal with your kids' behavior because they are having such a hard time with the divorce. You have to deal with a broken heart, possibly. You have to deal with changing all your accounts over, maybe changing your name. I mean, Liesel and I could sit here and talk about every change that you have to make. It's going to be a lot, but that's okay because, as Liesel said, a lot of times you realize much later that the change was the best thing that ever happened to you.
Yeah. I've been divorced. I was divorced after 25 years of marriage, and it was a huge shock to my system. My husband cheated, and I never honestly thought he was a better guy than that. So not only did I have to, my world was blown up, but I had to somehow reconcile who I thought my husband was with what he did, and that was a big gap. That was a big gap for me. And it affected the way that, we moved forward after that too. But everything changed. Every single thing in my life changed, except for my parents. But, pretty much everything else did. Like, I wasn't working at the time, so I had to figure out what's that gonna look like? I had to sell a house. I had to find safe, uh, place to live that I could afford. Like I said, I had to reinvent myself career-wise. But here's what I will say. Looking back, every single thing was a gift. Every single thing was a gift.
But you don't realize that until so much
Oh,
later.
I know. And so I used to work with women who were divorcing very difficult, challenging people. So it was very contentious divorces. And I would teach a class on communication with them. And one of the things I always told them that, okay, so everything that happens is a gift, but it might be wrapped in poo. It might smell like that. And it's not until later that you realize that that gift wrapping is actually the fertilizer for the flowers that bloomed later.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, let's get into tips on coping with your fear of change, okay? Because I want to tell people listening that if you're at the beginning of a divorce or even in the middle of one, it's really, really hard. We understand both Liesel and I went through a divorce. And although we just told you how wonderful everything's going to be later, you're probably thinking, well, how do you know? Because we know. Because the first tip I'm going to give you is that I can't even count the number of people, the number of stories I hear like Liesel of people who reinvented themselves and said, wow, I never would have been doing this if I was still married. Okay. You have two people right here. If I was still married, I wouldn't have a business called Divorce Girl Smiling. Liesel would not be a divorce mediator and a divorce coach. I mean, would you?
No.
Right. And you know
Nope.
what? It's having the courage to say, I am capable to do whatever I wanna do, and if I don't know what that looks like right now, I'm gonna figure it out, because it takes time, right, Liesel? I mean, you were just telling me before we started recording. Tell us your story of how you became a divorce mediator and a coach.
Oh, yeah. So a little bit about my background. I was a therapist for a decade. I did addictions counseling, and then I switched over to mental health counseling with kids and families. And then I went into clinical supervision and program management. So a big long time in mental health. Then I switched careers went into industrial and organizational psychology, so human resources. And in that capacity, I became a certified life coach. Then, uh, trying to put myself out there, I worked in human resources at a community college for a while. And then I was telling Jackie that I moved around a lot because of my husband's job. We ended up moving, like I said, a lot. And when we finally ended up back in Cleveland area, um, we m- after I was doing the human resources thing, it was 2008. So that's when everybody was losing their jobs, right? And my husband was one of them. But we managed to get a job and got back to Cleveland. And so I was trying to put my shingle out as a business coach, actually, executive coaching. And nobody was hiring. They're trying to make payroll, right? They're not trying to do all this extra stuff. So anyway, we were there. I'm just kind of getting in the groove. I did some executive recruiting for a while. And it was during this time that I found out that my husband was having an affair. And that blew up my world. So I had to figure out, okay, what do I want to do now? And I thought, well, after I went through a healing process, this was not right away. I was too shook up to even know what I wanted to do at the time. But I thought, oh, okay. I did manage to come through this process, and there is happiness on the other side. So I thought I want to be a divorce coach and help other people through the thick of the ick is what I call it.
But Liesel, I do want to tell you that that is so common because so many people who go through a divorce are like, "Oh, I'm going to be a divorce coach," and they do it way too soon. With you, you waited. It wasn't like because what I see happen with a lot of women is they'll think they want to be a divorce coach, but they're not over their own divorce,
Yeah.
and then they just burn out after a year and say, "This isn't for me."
They're not
Very
Harold yet.
different with you because you were
Mhm.
already a therapist. You already knew you wanted to be some kind of a coach. So
Yeah.
you took that experience. So I guess the point I'm trying to make to everybody is that it takes a long time to figure it out. You got to try a bunch of different things. I swear I must have had 5 jobs that I worked at for less than a month. So it's not like you're expected to know what your passion is if you don't already know it. And I think that coaching during your divorce really helps you get to that point quicker, knowing what you want to do. That's another benefit of divorce coaching.
Yeah. But I want to make a differentiation here. So I had put myself out as a divorce coach because I was a certified life coach. So I thought, okay, I'll just specialize in this. I started hanging out with divorce lawyers. Um, I became collaboratively trained to do collaborative divorces and other things like that. I went and got certified by the Ohio Supreme Court to do divorce mediation. But I wasn't doing anything with that because I'm not an attorney. So I have these things that are kind of sitting there. Um, and then I met Leah Hadley, who's one of your preferred trusted individuals here, through that the divorce group that I was in Cleveland. So I knew her. We were friends. And one day I just kind of said very to God, I said, "God, you know I wanna do something serious with divorce coaching. What do you got?" And the very next day, Leah called me, and she said, "Hey, I'm doing some work for a divorce coaching company out in California. They specialize in moms divorcing narcissists, and they're looking for a communication coach. Would you be interested?" I'm like,
And that was in 2016.
"No, this is not." But that's when I first started putting myself
Oh,
out as
I
a
see.
divorce coach.
Okay.
This was I
Mm.
don't know the exact it's been within the last 4 years. So
Okay.
this
But
is recent.
see, the point that Liesel is making is that if you follow what you love to do, things just come to you. It really does happen. I do have sort of a similar story. It's because you decided you didn't say, "Hey, I want to work with Leah Hadley and become a divorce coach." That wasn't your intention, but you followed the coaching path, what you wanted to do,
Yeah.
and you brought it and manifested it to yourself. We have to take a break. We're way over the break time. That's okay. You're listening to the Divorce Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. Today, I'm here with divorce coach and mediator Liesl Darby of Intentional Divorce Solutions. And Liesl and I are talking about tips for handling change during and after divorce. We'll be right back. After the break, we're going to give you more tips, and we're also going to talk about grace. Grace is probably my favorite word, and when you handle your changes with grace, you can't lose. We'll be right back. Thinking about divorce, going through a divorce, or being a single parent after divorce can feel like a hectic, stressful, and precarious time. Self-esteem is most likely suffering. It's hard to stop the stress and slow down, and you might just be trying to get through everything off your to-do list before you can think about getting help or what you want your new life to look like. And since we all know that your to-do list will always be full, you owe it to yourself to take time to see a professional, someone who's trained and has the dedication to helping people like you. I'm talking about Brittany Baker, LCSW, who's a therapist who works with couples, adults, and teens during hard, stressful times, including divorce. I've known Brittany for a couple years. I truly trust her. I've referred several clients to Brittany, and she just has a commitment to the profession. She's a mom. She brings so much experience and dedication to her practice. If you want to learn more, you can find Brittany at nixbakerwellness.com. And Nix is N-I-X. I also want to tell you about a wonderful mortgage lender named Jan Leisure. Jan is a division president for Diamond Residential Mortgage Corp, but she's also a CDLP, a certified divorce lending professional, which means Jan has a niche in helping women who are going through a divorce answer the question, can I afford to stay in my home? I have known Jan for a while, love her, really trust her. Jan has been in the mortgage industry since 1997. So she's amazing. If you want to learn more about Jan, you can find her in the Trusted Professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling or at diamondresidential.com. Welcome back to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. And change is not easy. Nobody likes it. It makes us uncomfortable. So can you imagine the changes you're going through when you're going through a divorce? So many changes, too much to even count. And we are talking about giving you some tips for handling the change. My guest is Liesl Darby. She's a mediator, a divorce coach who works for Intentional Divorce Solutions. And Liesl, before we get into more tips, what'd you think about what I said about grace?
Oh, I love that word too. And I think grace actually it goes along with an attitude, right? So give your first of all, give yourself grace as you're going through this process and just be kind to yourself because it's rough enough without you beating yourself up too. Just say, this is what I'm going through. I'm going to let myself feel whatever I'm feeling. Um, but what I see some people going through, and this is the antithesis of grace, is they want revenge or, they want to hurt their ex. And I say, give them grace too. If you can go into it with the attitude of everybody here is doing the best that they can, even if it doesn't look like it's all that great, just give them the benefit of the doubt. And that's to me, that's what grace is about.
Okay, but how can you say that and you were somebody who was cheated on. You didn't want a divorce. You didn't expect this was going to happen. How did you find it in your heart to give grace to your ex?
Funny you say hurt. So one thing that I did, I walked a lot after this happened. Like I would walk anywhere between 3 and 12 miles a day. I knew that the loop, in my neighborhood was 3 miles. I did at least once every day, if not more, depending on how stressed I was. And one of the things, because I knew I had to forgive, for my sake, not for his, but for my sake, if I was going to be able to heal and move forward and not be bitter about this, because I was bitter. I don't want anybody to think that, oh, this is so easy for her. No, no, no. I was hanging on to that. Didn't wanna do that. But when I was walking, what I told myself is, "You know what? I'm gonna make myself say 3 things about him that I can, genuinely say that I'm happy about." And all I could ever come up with was, "I'm glad you're breathing. I'm glad you're working. And I'm glad you didn't destroy your liver with all the drinking you did." Like, I never got beyond that, but those 3 things were enough to keep me out. It's you can't be in a state of, gratitude and a state of depression or anger or bitterness or anything like at the same time. You can't
Mhm.
do it. So I would force myself to do that, and then what I would do is I would imagine a little heart, like, a little Valentine heart. I call it a heart blip, and I would send that to him from my heart to his. And I worked up to sending 4. So that's what I would do on my walks all the time. Like I was in the pain. Like I did not have any I wasn't working at the time. I didn't have kids. I had nothing to distract me from the pain. So it was excruciating at the start, but I felt it. I didn't try to block it, and I made myself think those 3 things. I could honestly say I was happy for him, and I would work up to sending heart blips. And that
Wow, I love that. And what I want to tell people listening is, you know, I loved how you said that you can't feel gratitude and anger at the same time. So, whenever you're feeling, this is what I want to tell people. This is a practical tip to getting through your divorce and being a happy person, pretty much. Whenever you're feeling really pissed at your ex, and believe me, I'm the same way. I have a lot of these moments, and I've been divorced for 18 years. But you can't possibly feel 2 things these 2 things at the same time. You really can't. So whenever you're feeling angry or resentful or pissed, just shift your mind, send a heart blip, and say to yourself, "Here's what I'm grateful for. I have the kids most of the time." This is an example. You could say,
Yeah.
"I love having the kids full time. I'm so glad I got them because I had them like 5 days a week, and I really wanted that. I'm so glad my kids are doing better. I'm so glad I'm healthy." Anything basic. "I'm so glad that I have a date tonight with a guy I kinda like." Anything that you are feeling good about, because that is how you get to be a happy person, and that is handling things with grace. And we both understand that your ex is no picnic and that your ex didn't do that your ex could have done horrible things to you. We get it. We're not saying forget about it and say, "Oh, I shouldn't be upset about it." Of course you should. But it's all about attitude shift. And I just love this so much. So wait, I'm gonna quote something from your article that you wrote that I loved. It was the thing, "Divorce could be a Category 4 hurricane, potentially dangerous and certainly destructive to those in its path, but survivable but it's survivable with proper planning. We regularly have to deal with the winds of change to varying degrees. Sometimes there is a lull and life is calm. We go about our business, things are predictable and comfortable, and then the wind stirs." So, yeah, like enjoy those periods of peacefulness. I mean, so there's going to be those times. And Liesel, I don't know about you, but I just remember when I was getting divorced, it would be like there'd be like a problem. And it would be like, like maybe I got a divorce bill in the mail and I was freaking out because back then you got the bills in the mail. And I would be so depressed all day. How am I going to pay for this? I'm blowing all my money. And then, like, an hour later, I would get a call from, like, this new girlfriend I had who she was going through a divorce too, and she'd be like, "Hey, wanna go out to dinner tomorrow night?" And I'd be like, "Oh my god, something good happened." So, it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be all bad or all good. It's just gonna be like just a roller coaster, really.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and it's unpredictable, but I will guarantee you. So I always talk about also looking through filters. Like we look at life through filters, and you can change your filter anytime you want. So when we talk about people who they're a half glass full versus half glass empty. Those are filters. And what you are looking for is what you will find to just reinforce what you're looking for. So if you're always looking for things that, oh my gosh, my life sucks and only bad things, guess what? That's what you're going to notice. And it's going to seem like that's what your life is. If you can start to change the filter and say, I'm going to be grateful for 5 things every day, and I'm going to look for the happy moments. It's not going to be like your whole day is going to be great, but you will have happy moments, or at least peaceful moments, or at least moments when things are going okay. It can even be just like my coffee is good this morning, or I got out the door without tripping over the dog, or the cat didn't throw up, or it can be little things, but start looking for those because you will then start to notice all the other good things that are there, and little by little you're going to notice that things are not as bad as they used to be.
Right. But also I want to say, if you find out some bad news about your divorce or something happens with your ex, like the first time you find out your ex is like dating, he's in a
Yeah.
serious relationship,
Right?
you're allowed to cry. You have every right to be upset about it and cry. And maybe one day you just can't get out of bed and you want to have a pity party for yourself. I think that's normal and healthy to grieve and be angry.
Yep.
But it's the people I see who a year later are still in that stage where they're talking about their ex negatively every minute of every day, that those are the people that really get stuck and really can't move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. It's easy to do that. Negativity has its own life. You don't have to feed it. Positivity, you have to feed it a little bit more, but you get momentum. I think I talk about momentum in my article. So the more that you can practice this, and I want people to understand that you have choice. You can always, you can tell this is where my therapist background comes out. But if you're having bad thoughts or thoughts that are making you feel down, stop and look at it, right? And then deliberately choose a better feeling thought. It doesn't mean that you have to go to from the depths of the valley to the top of the mountain, but pick something that feels better than what you're thinking about right then, even just a little bit. But you can always choose whatever thought you want. So maybe make a list of things that make you happy or thoughts that make you feel bad. Like here's what I say every day before I get out of bed. All is well. Everything is always working out for me, and everything is arriving on schedule. I say this every morning before I get out of bed, and it sets the tone.
I
And
do the same, something similar.
yeah.
Okay, I want to tell also my listeners another tip for dealing with so much change all at once. So, you're going to be having all this change, but there are certain things in your life that are going to be constant. And I would say to focus on those. Like I've gone to the same gym since the time I was married, through my divorce, after my divorce, and well, I remember when I was getting divorced, it was comforting to go to the gym because at least that wasn't changing.
Yeah.
So, like, I'd go do my kickboxing classes, and it was like, okay, at least this is the same. At least I know for the next hour, this is something that isn't going to change. I'm going to continue to go to this gym. So, like, friends that you get together with, if you have like a monthly coffee, don't miss it. Just go. And if you have other things like even shopping at the same butcher, or like I go to this like, Arabic store to get like Lebanese groceries. And I would always go to that store, and that made me have comfort. So, like, it's okay to be comfortable with the things you have in your life
Yeah.
that might help offset some of these really big changes.
I love that tip because so much of your life is changing that if you do have things that are stable and comfortable, oh yeah. Yes, hang on to those and notice that, and just remind yourself that yeah, you're going through some things, but not everything is blown up. And like you said, there's lots of things that are the same coffee cup you drink out of, or the same route you take to
Right.
work, or their same favorite outfit, or your same TV shows. There's tons of stuff that's still the same.
Right. Wait, hold on. I'm gonna grab something. Okay. This is my Snuggie. And I wear
I
this
love it.
all the time. It has been in my life for like 15 years. And the Snuggie, anything that is the same. just, I'm not saying like you're like, well, I wasn't planning on getting rid of it, but like when you put it on, say to yourself, this is comforting. This is mine. It's not changing. And I just think that subconsciously that helps us to deal with the bigger changes.
Yeah.
Okay, Liesel, any final words? I have some final words and then I'll give you the last word, but I want to tell my listeners that change really, really is hard. A lot of changes at one time, but just believe in yourself and find your inner strength because thousands, tens of thousands, millions of women have gone through a divorce and have been where you are, and they all survived. The ones that made good choices. And you will too. So it's very important right now to believe in yourself, know that you're smart and you're strong and you're going to get through this. That's my advice. What's yours?
So the Chinese symbol for chaos is the same for opportunity. And I think if you can look at this as, okay, yeah, okay, so things are different now, but it's also an opportunity for tremendous growth. First of all, you will find you are stronger than you ever thought you were. Um, you can come out of this transformed, and it's almost inevitable that you will be transformed in some way. And allow that to happen. Don't put up the resistance so much. Um, and see, it's just look at it. This is a new chapter. I always say divorce is an ending, but it is also a beginning. And you get to write this next chapter and you get to make some deliberate choices about what you want to do. If you want to reinvent yourself, this is a perfect time to do it, but do it slowly. Don't think you're going to do all this in a week. Um, but you're going to be okay. And that, like you said, Jackie, thousands and thousands of women have gone through this. Like I said, you're in the thick of the ick. It's not fun, but there's gifts. Always be on the
So many, like too
Yes.
many to even count.
Yeah.
And people get divorced and they're like, I was 41 and they think that's so old. Oh my gosh, I would give anything to be. I'd give anything to be.
I was 48. I was 48. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really scary, but I love this whole conversation and I want to tell people listening that if you want to get in touch with Intentional Divorce Solutions, they are a mediating company no, I'm sorry, I don't want to say that. I want to say they are a mediation firm, they are a financial planning firm, and they have divorce support groups. So Liesel heads up the divorce support groups for Intentional Divorce Solutions. So if you want to learn more, go to intentionaldivorcesolutions.com.
And I also say we also offer individual coaching as well with a focus on conflict management, keeping the conflict as low as possible.
Liesel, I love it. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Jackie. I've enjoyed this so much. Thank you.
You can also find Intentional Divorce Solutions in the Trusted Professional section of Divorce Girl Smiling, along with so many other wonderful, trusted, vetted divorce professionals. Just go to divorcedgirlsmiling.com. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you real soon.